Omar and Peter. Guys. Okay, so I have Abdurrahman, Maya, and this is Lahrooq. Abdurrahman, Maya, Mirna, Nada, Omar, Peter, Gamal, and Lahrooq. Okay, and this is Minna. So there are 9 students in the room right now. Okay, Danielle, 10. So again, I have Abdurrahman, Lahrooq, Danielle, Maya, Minna, Mirna, Nada, Omar, Peter, and Gamal. I'll start. So the first session we did the characters. This is Kiki. Okay, sorry, we did the characters and a short background about the source of the play. This is Luigi. And in this session, we're going to read the summary of the acts, act by act, and then the main themes. Minna. Okay, Minna, I'll upload it as soon as I finish the session. It's not there yet. I'll upload it as soon as I finish the session. Okay. So Act 1, the summary of Act 1. The play takes place in Scotland. Duncan, King Duncan, the King of Scotland, is at war with the King of Norway. As the play opens, he learns of Macbeth's bravery. Macbeth is one of his leaders. Bravery in a victorious battle against MacDonald. Again, a battle between Scotland and Norway. And King Duncan hears about Macbeth's bravery in the battle against MacDonald, a Scot who sided with the Norwegians. MacDonald was a Scot who took the side of the Norwegians. At the same time, news arrives concerning the arrest of the treacherous Thane of Cawdor. Duncan decides to give the title of Thane of Cawdor to Macbeth to honor him. As Macbeth and Banquo return home from battle, remember, Macbeth and Banquo were friends. They meet 3 witches on their way back from the battle. The witches predict that Macbeth will be Thane of Cawdor and King of Scotland. Again, the witches predict that Macbeth will be Thane of Cawdor and King of Scotland, and that Banquo will be the father of kings. His descendants will be kings. After the witches disappear, Macbeth and Banquo meet 2 noblemen, Ross and Angus. Okay, this is Besant. And who announced Macbeth's new title as Thane of Cawdor. They tell him that the king have bestowed you with or offered you the title of the Thane of Cawdor. So that one of the prophecies came true. Upon hearing this, Macbeth begins to contemplate the murder of Duncan. He wanted to achieve the second prophecy. You will be King of Scotland. So how would I be King of Scotland? Duncan is the king and he has 2 sons. How can I be king without killing Duncan? So Duncan must be killed. Okay? So upon hearing this, Macbeth begins to contemplate the murder of Duncan in order to realize the witch's second prophecy. Macbeth and Banquo meet with Duncan, the king, who announces that he is going to pay Macbeth a visit at his castle. Macbeth rides ahead to prepare his household for the visit of the king. Meanwhile, Lady Macbeth receives a letter from Macbeth informing her of the witch's prophecy and its subsequent realization. How can I be king without getting rid of Duncan? A servant appears. شاهد تميم. Okay, a servant appears uh, to inform her of Duncan's approach. The king is approaching. Energized by the news, Lady Macbeth invokes supernatural powers to strip her of feminine softness and thus prepare her for the murder of Duncan. When Macbeth arrives, Lady Macbeth tells him that she will plot Duncan's murder. When Duncan arrives at the castle, Lady Macbeth greets him alone. When Macbeth fails to appear, Macbeth wasn't there. Lady Macbeth finds him in his room, contemplating the weighty and evil decision to kill Duncan. Shelley? Okay. Uh, Lady Macbeth taunts him by telling him that he will only be a man if he kills Duncan. The man was hesitated. He didn't want to kill Duncan. He wanted to kill him, and at the same time, he was hesitated, as I said. That she said to him, "You will be a man if you kill Duncan. If you don't want to kill him, you're like a woman with a fearful heart." She then tells him her plan for the murder. As I told you before, we will give the two guards on both sides of the king wine and put some blood spots or stains on their bodies and their clothes and some daggers, and anybody who would enter the room will think that they killed the king while they were drunk, which Macbeth accepts. He accepts her plan. They will kill him while his drunken bodyguards sleep, then plant incriminating evidence on the bodyguards, the blood and the daggers. This is the summary of Act 1. Act 2, Macbeth sees a vision of a bloody dagger floating before him. He sees a bloody dagger floating in front of him, leading him to Duncan's room. When he hears Lady Macbeth ring the bell to signal the completion of her preparations, so everything is ready. The bodyguards are drunk now, and I have put the stains of blood on their bodies and the daggers next to them. Macbeth sets out to complete his part in the murderous plan to kill the king. Lady Macbeth waits for Macbeth to finish the act of regicide. You know, guys, regicide is the killing of a king or a queen. Regicide. Macbeth enters, still carrying the bloody daggers. Lady Macbeth again chastises him for his weak-mindedness and plants the daggers on the bodyguards herself. While she does so, Macbeth imagines that he hears a haunting voice saying that he shall sleep no more. Remember, we said before that he suffered from insomnia after that. Lady Macbeth returns and assures Macbeth that a little water clears us of this deed. As the Thanes, Macduff, and Lennox arrive, the porter pretends that he is guarding the gate to hell. Immediately thereafter, Macduff discovers Duncan's dead body. When Macduff enters the room to wake him up, he discovers that he was dead. Macbeth kills the two bodyguards, claiming that he was overcome with a fit of grief and rage when he saw them with the bloody daggers. Yani, Macbeth wanted the other people to believe that the guards killed the king. And when I went into the room and found that the king was dead, I was angry and killed them. Duncan's sons, Malcolm and Donalbain, these are the two sons of Duncan, fearing their lives after knowing that their father was killed, they escaped to England and Ireland. As we said, Malcolm escaped to England and Donalbain escaped to Ireland. Their flight brings them under suspicion. Some people thought that they killed their father, because why do you escape of conspiring against Duncan? Macbeth is thus crowned King of Scotland because the two princes escaped. Now, the next to throne was Macbeth. Act 3, in an attempt to thwart the witch's prophecy that Banquo will father kings, as they told them, Macbeth hires two murderers to kill Banquo and his son Fleance. Lady Macbeth is left uninformed of these plans, so Macbeth didn't tell his wife about his plan to kill Banquo and his son, Fleance. A third murderer joins the other two on the heath, and the three men kill Banquo. Fleance, Banquo's son, manages to escape. Banquo's ghost appears to Macbeth as he sits down to a celebratory banquet. He was eating, okay, sitting at a table eating, and Banquo's ghost appears to him, sending him into a frenzy of terror. He was like mad. Lady Macbeth attempts to cover up for his odd behavior, but the banquet comes to a premature end, and the Thanes begin to question Macbeth's sanity. Is he sane or insane? Is he normal or crazy? Our king. Okay, Macbeth decides that he must revisit the witches to look into the future once more. Meanwhile, Macbeth's Thanes begin to turn against him. Macduff meets Malcolm in England to prepare an army to march on Scotland. Scene 4, or Act 4, sorry, the witches show Macbeth three apparitions. They appear three times. The first warns him against Macduff, beware of Macduff. The second tells him to fear no man born of woman. As we said before, fear no man born of woman. And no one born of woman can harm you. And the third prophesies, that uh, uh, he will fall only when Burnham Wood comes to uh, Dunsinane or Dunsinane Castle. How come a wood move or march to reach a castle? This is crazy. So it's impossible that anyone would harm him. Uh, so Macbeth takes this as a prophecy that he is infallible. He can never fall. When he asks the witches if their prophecy about Banquo will come true, they show him a procession of 8 kings. And 8 of his descendants will become kings, all of whom look like Banquo. Okay. Meanwhile, in England, Malcolm tests Macduff's loyalty by pretending to confess to multiple sins and malicious ambitions. When Macduff proves his loyalty to Scotland, the two strategize for their offensive against Macbeth. So they plan for their attack against or campaign against Macbeth. Back in Scotland, Macbeth has Macduff's wife and children murdered. Macduff, is escaped and left his wife and kids behind, and they were all killed. Act 5, the last act, Lady Macbeth suffers from bouts of sleepwalking. So again, the king and the queen became insane, feeling guilty to a doctor who observes her symptoms. She unwittingly reveals her guilt as she pronounced that she cannot wash her hands clean of bloodstains. Macbeth is too preoccupied. He is preoccupied with the battle preparations to pay much heed to her dreams and expresses anger when the doctor says he cannot cure her. So the doctor tells Lady Macbeth that I cannot cure you. Just as the English army led by Malcolm, Macduff Seward approaches. Lady Macbeth's cry of death is heard in the castle. When Macbeth hears of her death, he comments that she should have died at a future date and muses on the meaninglessness of life. Remember that they say that she died off stage, maybe she killed herself. This is what the audience know. Taking the witch's second prophecies in good faith, Macbeth still believes that he is impregnable to the approaching army, but Malcolm has instructed each man in the English army to cut a tree branch from Burnham Wood and hold it up to disguise the army's total numbers. As a result, Macbeth, or Macbeth's servant, reports that he has seen a seemingly impossible sight. What this sight? Burnham Wood seems to be moving toward the castle. Macbeth is shaken but still engages the oncoming army. In battle, Macbeth kills young Seward, the English general's brave son. Again, Macbeth kills young Seward, the English general's brave son. Macduff then challenges Macbeth. As they fight, Macduff reveals that he was not of woman born. Remember, Macduff was born Caesarean. He was not born naturally, but was untimely ripped from his mother's womb, like what happens today. Okay, doctors make a cut in the womb of the mother to get the child or the baby out. Macbeth is stunned but refuses to yield to Macduff. Macduff kills him and decapitates him, cuts his head. At the end of the play, Malcolm is proclaimed the king or the new king of Scotland. Uh, the themes, we have a couple of themes. As a tragedy, Macbeth is a dramatization of the psychological repercussions of unbridled ambition. We have unbridled ambition, strong ambition. Macbeth and Lady Macbeth's ambition to be king and queen. The play's main themes, loyalty, guilt, innocence, and fate, all deal with the central idea of ambition and its consequences. Similarly, Shakespeare uses imagery and symbolism to illustrate the concepts of innocence and guilt. Ambition, the theme of ambition, the most important, the central theme in the play. Macbeth's ambition in his tragic flow. You know, every important character has a tragic flow. Devoid of any morality, it ultimately causes Macbeth's downfall. Two factors stoke the flames of his ambition. The prophecy of the three witches, they told him that you'll be king, who claimed that not only will he be Thane of Cawdor, but also king, and even more so the attitude of his wife, who taunts his assertiveness and manhood and actually stage directs her husband's actions. Macbeth's ambition, however, soon spirals out of control. He feels that his power is threatened to a point where it can only be preserved through murdering his suspected enemies. Eventually, ambition causes both Macbeth's and Lady Macbeth's undoing. He is defeated in battle and decapitated by Macduff, while Lady Macbeth succumbs to insanity and commits suicide. Loyalty, the theme of loyalty. Loyalty plays out in many ways in Macbeth. At the beginning of the play, King Duncan rewards Macbeth. Remember, he visited him at home to reward him or to honor him with the title of Thane of Cawdor after the original Thane betrayed him and joined forces with Norway. While Macbeth was a valiant general, however, when Duncan names Malcolm his heir, his eldest son, Macbeth comes to the conclusion that he must kill King Duncan in order to become king himself. In another example of Shakespeare's loyalty and betrayal dynamic, Macbeth betrays Banquo out of paranoia. Although the pair were comrades, were friends in arms, after he becomes king, Macbeth remembered that the witches predicted that Banquo's descendants would ultimately be crowned kings of Scotland. Macbeth then decides to have him killed. him and his son. Macduff, who suspects Macbeth once he sees the king's corpse, flees to England to join Duncan's son, Malcolm, and together they plan Macbeth's downfall. The theme of appearance and reality. False face must hide what the false heart doth know. This is a quotation. Macbeth tells Duncan when he already has intentions to murder him near the end of Act 1. Similarly, the witch's utterances, prophecies such as fair is foul and foul is fair, subtly play with appearance and reality. Their prophecy stating that Macbeth can be vanquished, can be defeated by any child born of or of woman born, is rendered vain when Macduff reveals that he was born via a caesarean section. In addition, the assurance that he would not be vanquished until great Burnham would to high Dunsinane hill shall come against him is at first deemed an unnatural phenomenon, as the forest would not walk up a hill, but in reality meant that soldiers were cutting up trees in Burnham Wood to get closer to uh, Dunsinane Hill as a type of camouflage. Fate and free will. Would Macbeth have become king had he not chosen his murderous path? Maybe he would become king in another way. This question brings into play the matters of fate and free will. The witches predict that he would become Thane of Cawdor, and soon after he is anointed that title without any action required of him. The witches show Macbeth his future and his fate, but Duncan's murder is a matter of Macbeth's own free will. And after Duncan's assassination, the further assassinations are a matter of his own planning. This also applies to the other visions the witches conjure for Macbeth. He sees them as a sign of invincibility. He sees them as a sign of invincibility. He thought himself to be invincible, can be defeated, and acts accordingly, but they actually anticipate his demise. The theme of symbolism of light and darkness. Light and starlight symbolize that is good and noble, and the moral order brought by King Duncan announced that signs of nobleness, like stars, shall shine on all deservers. By contrast, the three witches are known as midnight hags. And Lady Macbeth, a hag is an old woman, an old ugly woman, asks the night to cloak her actions from the heaven. Similarly, once Macbeth becomes king, day and night become indistinguishable, from one another. When Lady Macbeth displays her insanity, she wants to carry a candle with her as a form of protection. She didn't feel safe all the time. She and her husband didn't feel safe. Symbolism of sleep. In Macbeth, sleep symbolizes innocence and purity. For instance, sorry, uh, after murdering King Duncan, Macbeth is in such distress and he believes he heard a voice saying, Methought I heard a voice cry, sleep no more. Macbeth does murder sleep. The innocent sleep. So the king was sleeping innocently. I come to your castle. I visit you at home in order to honor you because you were victorious in the battle, and you murder this innocence. You murder sleep, the innocent sleep. Sleep that knits up the raveled slave of care. He goes on to compare sleep to a soothing bath after a day of hard work and to the main course of a feast, feeling that when I have a problem with some of the lines here. Yes, okay. When he murdered his king in his sleep, he murdered sleep itself. he murdered innocent sleep. Similarly, after he sends killers to murder Banquo, Macbeth laments being constantly shaken by nightmares and by restless ecstasy, where the word ecstasy loses any positive connotations. You know, ecstasy has some positive connotations. Here, it has some negative connotations. When Macbeth sees Banquo's ghost at the banquet, Lady Macbeth remarks that he lacks the season of all natures, sleep. Eventually, her sleep becomes disturbed as well. She becomes prone to sleepwalking, reliving the horrors of Duncan's murder. I think symbolism of blood, maybe this is the last uh, theme, symbolism of blood. Blood symbolizes murder and guilt, and imagery of it pertains to both Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. For example, before killing Duncan, Macbeth hallucinates a bloody dagger pointing toward the king's room. Remember when he saw, or when he has some hallucinations of a moving dagger in front of him, referring to the king's room. After committing the murder, he is horrified and says, "Will all great Neptune's ocean wash this blood clean from my hand?" No. Banquo's ghost, which appeared when he was having a banquet, who appears during a banquet, exhibits glory locks. Blood also symbolizes Macbeth's own acceptance of his guilt. He tells Lady Macbeth, "I'm in blood, stepped in so far that, should I wade no more, returning were as tedious as go over." Blood eventually also affects Lady Macbeth, who, in her sleepwalking scene, wants to clean blood from her hands, but she can't. For Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, blood shows that their guilt trajectory runs in opposite directions. Macbeth turns from being guilty into a ruthless murderer, whereas Lady Macbeth, who starts off as more assertive than her husband, she looked more decisive, becomes ridden with guilt, and eventually kills herself. Remember, she was trying to convince him and she was encouraging him to kill the king, accusing him of not being a man if he didn't do it. She herself became, let's say, insane, and she sleepwalked, and according to her, she couldn't clean her hands of the king's blood, or of blood. Uh, we're done with this summary, guys. If you have any question, please go ahead. Oh, if you have any question, please go ahead. Minna?
So, Mr., we don't need to open the book?
Never.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Any other question? Danielle?
So, Mr., can you tell us what are the topics from the beginning to the end, yani?
Okay. In the novel, we said chapters 4 to chapter 8, from chapter 4 to chapter 9, sorry. Okay.
Okay.
In literature, this summary only, these 6 pages only. Study them well. All the questions will be from it. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And a list of vocab items, I'll upload it later, about 20 to 25, as I told you before. And the 100 common mistakes, or the stuff we did in term 3. The school asked me to get about 20% from term 3. And I said, this is the easiest thing to give you. I wanted to make it as easy as I could. Yeah. The easiest thing, I think, is these 100 common mistakes. I think they're easy for all of you.
Okay.
and maybe there will be a comprehension passage. This doesn't need any preparation, as you know. Any other
Okay.
question?
Thank you.
So again, guys, talking about literature, study these 6 pages only. All the questions will come from it. Okay, Luigi has a question. Go ahead.
Mr. In the novel,
Yeah.
will we have to read the story or
Everything.
just the
There are
summary?
6 chapters this time. From the very beginning, I asked you to read the text, watch the video, to read the summary, enjoy. Yani, yes, you have to read the text. I said this from the very beginning.
Okay, thank you.
Well, any other questions? Any other questions? So, Maya, okay. Do we have Maya? So I have some questions. If you're ready, please put your hand up. And I want all of you to answer, please, because some people are lazy. Some people never put their hands up. Some people never put their hands up. I want someone to mention some of the themes, 2 or 3 themes in the play. Can you name 2 or 3 themes? I have Myrna only. Who else? Guys, you don't answer and blame me later for your marks. Please be more active. The same 3 or 4 or 5 people who raised their hands in the first session. I want new faces. Maya, can you please tell me? You have just joined, I think. You will not be able to answer. Sorry. Okay. I'll take Peter this time. Peter, why are you lazy? Peter. Dear Peter. Peter, are you there? Peter. So Peter is not there. Okay, I have 6 raised hands, the same people who raised their hands the first time. I have Myrna, Danielle, Luigi, Maya. So Maya wants to answer. Okay. I'll go to Maya. Maya?
Ambition.
Ambition. This is the central theme, right? Around which all the other themes revolve. And ambition, again, is the central or the pivotal theme around which all the other ones rotate or revolve. Good. What else?
Betrayal.
Betrayal. Okay.
And crime.
Thank you, Myrna. Thank you, Maya. Sorry. Yani, those who have just joined, guys, yani 3 or 4 people tried to join after 15 minutes after the beginning of the session. Yani, it's not time to say this. This is the last session, no problem. Okay, Myrna, if you want to answer, go ahead.
I was going to say appearance and reality and betrayal.
Okay, thank you. Okay. For those who have just, thank you, Mem. Thank you, Mai. Thank you all. Please put your hands down. Thank you, Danielle, Luigi, Omar. I'll put a tick in front of your names because you are active. Thank you very much. Danielle. Maya, do you still have a question or Maya?
I wanted to tell you that I was here since the beginning of the
Yes,
session. I had
I
internet
I
issues.
see. I saw your name on the list. Sorry, no problem.
Okay.
Okay. Type. People have just joined. People who have just joined. People who came late. Do you have any question? I'm asking Yauta, Mariam, maybe Matar, and the 3 or 4 people who joined late, and I think maybe Hania. Any question, guys? طيب Yauta.
I wanted to apologize and ask another question.
No problem.
Is the story, can you remind me the story we're taking from chapter what to chapter what?
4 to 9. I've just
Okay. 4 to 9, and we should study from the book.
Yes, everything. The videos,
Okay.
enjoy. You have the summary.
No, I'm just asking.
Yes.
I'm just making sure.
Answer.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome. Any other question, guys, before I end the session? Thank you very much. I'll end the session. Good luck.